Welcome to my sewing room. I am so thrilled to have as my guest today Chris Tryon. Chris is Director of Education for ELNA USA, and she has brought some spectacular things to share with you. The first garment that Chris has brought is this beautiful collar with the most elegant of heirloom decorative techniques. Absolutely incredible to be worn over so many different things. And this is really spectacular. It's a shadow work that looks for the world as if it's been done by hand, and guess what? It's all by machine. It also is just as pretty on the back as it is on the front, and a real elegant and a very sophisticated design. She has also embellished one of the beautiful Australian blouses with just absolutely elegant, a little bit darker shade of ecru on the ecru silk dupioni. And this is one of my all-time favorites. What an elegant, elegant wall hanging. It has little places on the back to put a good-looking brass rod through, and these absolutely wonderful colors, and even the little three-dimensional butterfly over here. I really believe that home decorating things and things to use for the home are one of the most exciting parts of sewing today. And Chris has made these absolutely beautiful napkins. Now I asked Chris, did you make these or purchase them? She said, well, I made these, but you could also use the embroidery machine to, if you just wanted to purchase your napkins, you could embellish them, and it's so pretty the way she has them all tied together with a pretty silk ribbon. Once again, in the home decorating category, Chris has added some beautiful drawn thread work by machine, of course, on these elegant sheets for your bedroom. And now something very unusual and really elegant. Here is a white linen tablecloth with a bridal white embroidery on it and a wonderfully elegant and very sophisticated design. And look here what goes with it. Chair covers. This reminds me of those fancy decorating magazines where they show these elegant events with the linen chair covers, and you can make your own so easily. The matching embroidery that we just saw on the tablecloth is on the back. They're simply tied over here and put down on the chair. Now, you know, I love doll dresses, and I'm sure that a lot of you love doll dresses too. Isn't this an elegant little doll dress with this French sewing on the bodice and then coming down using that beautiful pin stitch to make an easy scallop skirt, and then little decorative stitches on the bottom of the skirt right here before the scallop begins. Absolutely so much fun to do, all of these beautiful embroideries. And now then, let's go over to the technique boards where Chris and I will share with you some of these wonderful things. We have such an exciting technique to share with you today, drawn thread work by machine. Don't ever tell anybody that this was not done by hand, because most everybody will think it was. Now then, look, first of all, you're going to draw 3 lines, and these first 2 lines, in between these first 2, are going to be where your drawn thread work is. The third one is drawn for hemming purposes. The next step is to stitch a straight stitch along line number 1 and stitch a straight stitch along line number 2. When later on we'll be doing the drawn thread work between line number 1 and line number 2. Now here comes the step that's just like drawn thread by hand. I'm working on linen. I'll pull up a thread, and I'm going to pull one at a time the threads out to make this part ready for the drawn thread work. Here I've pulled out all of the threads from line number 1 to stitching line number 2, and there's a line drawn in the middle just so you can see exactly where to run your foot of your sewing machine. Now here is the beautiful part. This has already had the beautiful bundling done along here with the machine, of course, and it looks for the world as if you have done it by hand. It's absolutely a beautiful technique done by machine. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today my friend Chris Tryon. Chris is Director of Education for ELNA USA, and she has come to share this wonderful technique with you. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited to show you this wonderful technique that is so easy to do. But the first thing I'd like to do is go over a couple of notions that you're going to need to use for this technique. The first is you'll need a really good seam ripper, which helps in pulling out the threads. You'll need a marking pen, whether it be an air erasable or a water erasable. You'll need size 90 sewing machine universal needles, and then you'll need a size 12 pearl cotton that most people are typically used for tatting or cotton work, and you'll need to pre-wind that on a bobbin, okay? The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to mark up our hemline, okay? The very first thing I should say that you should do is make sure that your project is on the straight of grain. Okay, that's very important, especially when you go to pull the threads. Otherwise, you end up with threads that are kittywampus from one another. And then what you want to do from your hem is you want to put up or measure up what we call a buffer. And I used a 1-inch buffer. Okay. And then from that line, you'll measure up whatever the space you want for your drawn work, whether it be an inch and a half. And I've actually used an inch for this technique. Then what you're going to do is you're actually going to pull your threads. And the seam ripper works really great because you can just pop it right in here, grab your thread, and of course I can't do it right now.
You know what, that's always the way it is on television, but at least our viewers will know that when they can't find theirs.
And see how easy that is, and then you just go ahead and pull, and I've pulled that one thread, okay? And just continue to do that until you have the complete open work. Okay.
Right. And you know, it doesn't take too long when you're working on linen to pull those out.
Perfect TV work, as I say. The next thing that we're actually going to do is we're actually ready to sew now, to actually bundle or group our threads together. There's going to be a couple things you're going to need to do. Is you're going to need to actually thread the pearl cotton through your needle. So that's where the size 90 needle comes in. Okay. Then you're going to need to use a saddle stitch, which on our machine is stitch number 7. But the key is to take the needle tension all the way down to 0. Okay. So I've set up my machine and I've already started the project a little bit, as you can see, and I'll continue to sew. Okay. Now, what I also did was I marked the center of my drawn work, so I have a line that I can stitch along. So I have something so I can follow, so that my drawn work appears somewhat straight. Okay. Now, you want to sew very slow when you do this technique. The reason is by slowly, it helps bundle the threads together, so you end up with what looks like hand-drawn work, okay? And I'm just using the bamboo skewer to help move the open work threads so that they feed evenly underneath the feet. Okay, and you can see how simple and easy this is to do.
And that's just a regular foot.
Just a regular, you just need your regular straight stitch foot that comes with every machine, and just so slow. That's why machines that have speed controls on them come in very handy on projects like this, because I can adjust my speed control way down so I can't go fast for those people that are the lead foot sewers. And I don't happen to be one of those, so.
And you know what? This goes ever so much more quickly
than doing it by hand.
Oh my God! And you know what, Chris? It really is beautiful. When I looked at this, I thought, well, my goodness, this is hand-drawn work. And I thought, well, maybe you were going to show us another. And sure enough, everything I looked at was done by machine.
Done by machine.
I love the way you also did it on the sheets as well as on the this home decorating project you're going to have for us in a minute.
Yep. And it makes great gift items. It's really fast, simple, and easy. The thing that probably takes the most time is pulling out the threads. The rest is just easy.
And you're using your little bamboo skewer just as it goes through very, very slowly.
Yep.
And pulls it through. Well, I'll tell you what, Chris, that is an absolutely fascinating technique. I think I have it. As a matter of fact, it looks so simple. I think it'll be easy for all of us to do.
Good.
And next, Chris has a home decorating project for you using this wonderful technique of drawn work by machine. This is a perfectly elegant table runner that Chris has done for your home decorating project today. Let me hold this up. I'm going to hold it up against my suit over here, Chris, so everyone can see the magnificent, really beautiful white on white embroidery in a very, very elegant, sophisticated design. And then this beautiful drawn work with your bundling that looks so pretty there. As you pointed out earlier, that good-looking, just 1-inch border that's down there at the bottom, and really nice corners also, which I'm going to ask you to share how you made those beautiful corners in just a minute. You know, Chris, I just love the idea of home decorating, and I'm going to hold up this matching napkin set once again against my black suit so you can see how beautiful it is to make napkins and a table runner and or tablecloth to match. Now then, would you show us how you went about making those beautiful corners?
I would love to. I actually call them cheater's corners or lazy man's corners. The first thing that I did was, of course, we've bundled our threads and we had marked up our original hem, but we need to do the side too, and that's where I started, was to do the side of the table runner before I did the actual hem. And what you do is really easy. Once you've got your side mark, is just finger press, or go ahead and use your iron, but because I've got linen and I've actually starched my linen, it's real easy to just go and finger press, okay? So I'm just going to finger press my hem, and then what I want to do is, it's actually a double fold hem. I'm going to fold it back on itself so that I almost get a shadow appearance on my hem, which I think tends to make the actual design itself stand out quite a bit more. Okay, so I've got that all finger pressed, and now I'm actually ready to sew. So what I do first is I actually sew right along the very edge or the very tip of my hem, and I've got it set up for a straight stitch, and I've got about a 2.0 length, fairly small. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to need to adjust my needle position so that it's to the edge of my hem, and I'm just
right along the
very edge. So that's where I would suggest, if you have a really good blind hem foot, they often have a guide that helps you make sure that you run the very edge. You're stitching along the very edge.
Okay.
I usually kind of eyeball it, or I'll use a marking on my foot, and in this case I'm using the inside of my foot as my marking. You can also use the outside edge of your foot as your marking too.
It's so wonderful to have those needle positions, just to kind of, if you didn't, wherever you want to mark, you know you can get your needle to go in the right place.
Exactly. Now, the trick is, because I've drawn this, the threads out, I don't want to stitch over that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch right up to the very edge, and I'm actually going to lock my stitch right before I get to the drawn work. Okay, so now I know that that stitch is nice and secure. I'm just going to simply move my fabric down to the next position, and I'm going to lock it at the beginning. Okay, and then I'm going to sew all the way to the end. Okay, and now I've got my one side already sewn.
All right.
Okay, and then what I would want to do is I would want to repeat sewing along this side too, but we're going to move on. And we're actually going to show you how I did the actual, what I call cheater's corner.
Okay.
Okay. I have sewn down both sides, here and here, and I've got my hem. So I'm just going to fold up my hem, fold it in on itself, and I've got my lovely little cheater's corner.
You literally just did the same thing on the bottom that you did on the side for that pretty square
corner. And it
corner.
gives you a nice professional edge finish. And now I can just go ahead and sew.
And this time you're sewing just along the hemline.
This time I'm sewing just along the hemline. I don't want to double sew my hem. My sides I want to double sew for just more of a professional appearance. The hem I just want to single stitch.
Well, Chris, that really is an easy hem, and I know why you call that the cheater's hem. It looks like the hems on those wonderful, expensive, you know, those expensive linen stores, and yet all you did was fold it over twice.
Yeah, and it's so easy.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And next, I have a really nice craft for you. This cute little project, which really could be, the actual goods for this would be probably under $5 at any hobby shop, is called a Necessary Notions Keeper. Now you can see it has a place for my thimble, my scissors, pins right here, and a really nice little pin cushion, and a place to hold several spools of thread. This is very easy to make, and let me just share with you. I'll get a little plaque from the hobby store, and then I have an absolutely wonderful hand drill. So I'll come in here, and I can drill the little holes in there by hand to put my little sticks in. And here come the sticks. And you know what? Since my hole might need a little help. See, I'm playing like I'm in Girl Scouts here. I'm just going to hammer those little stobs down there. I've run a little screw up through here, and the little egg cup I'm just going to screw on. Now that was easy enough. Let's go ahead and make the little pin cushion, because what is going to go in that egg? This is also very easy. I have a little template, and since this is kind of a red velvet, I'm going to cut 4 little leaves. once again, I've got to put them together. So I'm going to put the two right sides to right sides and straight stitch along one edge and go ahead and clip the curves. Then I'll go ahead and continue stitching all the way around, right sides to right sides. I'll put all 4 of those little leaves together. Finish stitching it, just leave enough space to turn it. It will look a little bit like this. After you get it all finished, just leave enough space to turn it. And then this looks like a lot of polyfill, but actually we're going to really stuff this down tightly to go ahead and make the little pin cushion. After the pin cushion is stuffed and hand whipped together, then take maybe some braid or whatever kind of trim you have, and it doesn't have to have any trim, but I think it's kind of pretty to use a braid. And then put glue along the edge, and you now have the little braid glued down. Then it's time to bring this little egg cup back over here. I'm going to go ahead and put glue all in the bottom of that egg cup. And after this is finished, I will simply put my little pin cushion egg down in there after it's all glued. And you know what I think is kind of pretty too, since I've used a little gold braid there. To use a little bit of gold braid, once again, put in glue, and I can put the gold braid around the edge to finish it. Now this is a very, very handy thing to have, and I also think for any of your sewing friends, wouldn't this be just a really nice present? And sometimes I think it is so hard to get a gift that really is something you can use and absolutely just love for around $5. And I will tell you that is about what our wooden products and the polyfill and the little braid cost, was about $5. And now I have another version of that absolutely fabulous New Zealand blouse that we've been presenting to you in this series. For today's version of this beautiful and elegant New Zealand blouse, we have done a wonderful mitered collar with lace. And you know what's so interesting about this, I think? There are 3 different pieces of lace. Do you see one pattern? Another, well, I guess they're 2 different patterns, but 3 different pieces of lace. And those have been stitched together and mitered just as if it were a wide piece of lace. Another thing I like to tell our viewers is that we do cut our blouses in patterns size 6 to size 28. So that really would fit a lot of people, I think. Now, let's see how on earth you do those beautiful miters. First of all, I have to draw the miter lines, and then to know where to put the pin and miter it, I have to draw a wide line to bisect it. This shows how we put together the 3 pieces of lace. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of lace shaping in just a minute, but let's go back to some beginning French sewing techniques. All in the world you do to put those pieces of lace together is butt the 2 pieces of lace together and zigzag. Sometimes I show all of the advanced things about French sewing by machine and forget the very basics of just butting 2 pieces of lace together and zigzagging. I do like to use a very small needle, a 60 or a 70, and then a width that just covers the 2 headings of the lace that I'm butting together, and a length of about 1 or even a 1.5 will be fine. It just depends on how much of a buttonhole type stitch you want your laces to have. Now then, let's go back, since we've done a little bit on the beginning sewing, let's go back and do a little bit of lace shaping. I have stitched these 3 pieces of lace together to make a very wide piece of lace. Now to miter, it's very simple. I put a pin at the top, and I put a pin at the bottom as always, and then I take this wide piece of lace that we've created, fold it back right on itself, remove the pin at the bottom that goes through 2 layers, and bring it over here, and we have mitered lace. Now let's do that again. I'm going to do this time a pin at the top as always, a pin at the bottom. I'm going to fold it back on itself. This time remove the top pin, put it through 2 layers, and now I have mitered the wider piece of lace. Here I already have it mitered and pinned, and I'm going to share with you that when you attach it to the blouse, you can just zigzag it as we have done here, or you can wing needle entredot it. Either one you want to do, or any stitch you want to use, but remember, as always, you do not have to have a fancy machine to do French sewing by machine. You do need straight and zigzag. Now then, oh, I forgot to show you about cutting the fabric away. After I've attached it at the top, then I will go in up underneath here and cut the fabric away, and all of a sudden I have a beautiful it really isn't scalloped, it's kind of square scallops, but I will have a beautiful finish. Now then, in order to put the gathered lace on, I will pull the thread that is built into French laces. I will come along, I will zigzag or wing needle entredot or whatever stitch you want to do. And by the way, let me show you one little trick here. Let me move my finger so you can see. When I come into the corners, I always put extra fullness. That way it won't cup under. And when you're zigzagging with the sewing machine, putting the gathered lace, don't worry if it isn't all even, because you can't make it even if you're whipping it on by hand. But always put a little extra fullness when you come up into the corner, and then you can straighten your lace out just a little bit more. I know my hands are kind of in the way there, but you can straighten your lace out a little bit more as you come down. Now here I have another corner, so it's really good to put a little bit of extra fullness in that corner, zigzag it, and then I'm going to go up to another corner. Now let me show you one more thing. You have these little darts that are folded in from your miters. All you do is just take those little darts and trim them off after you have zigzag down. Now let me turn over here once again. Before you trim off that dart, go back in and zigzag down all of these little areas where you fold them in, and then you can trim away the dart. And now I have one of the most beautiful dresses I've ever had for you in the attic. Won't you come along with me so you can see? I just couldn't wait until this show so I can share this beautiful dress with you. Hours and hours and hours went into making this dress. Absolutely beautiful. See how they've done the pretty mitered corners with the hand buttonhole stitching around it. Even the sleeves are perfectly magnificent. Let me hold these open so you can see them. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? And by the way, you could use a zigzag since we have zigzag machines today. All of this was stitched by hand. Let's come down and look at this skirt. I think I'm just going to hold it up. I believe that'll be the best way for you to look at this absolutely magnificent skirt. It has hand embroidery at the tops of some of the areas where the miters have been. It almost looks like three little leaves done in satin stitch, going all the way down to the bottom. And then where it gores out, it has a little bit different shape with a little bit of curving. And then around the bottom, just a very, very tiny little ruffle. I just think this skirt is out of this world. Now, as usual, the dresses are just as magnificent on the back, and I have to show you the back. This is a little sailor collar, and sometimes around between 1900 and 1910, the ladies' dresses did have sailor collars. But what I really want to show you, let me lift that sailor collar up and let you see the beautiful and very, very creative way that these laces are angled and butted together and then come down around the waistline, and once again they're angled again. And then there's a pretty piece of lace that does go around the waistline. And you would think that maybe they had done all the lace shaping they wanted to do on the front of the skirt. Well, not so. There's even a different pattern of lace shaping that has been done on the back of the skirt. It's similar to the front, but not really exactly like the front. Once again, the three little embroideries are at the top of different designs when they go up and down. There's flip-flopping. Now that I look at this dress, they've used all three of the lace shapes. They've used flip-flopping, this lady used curving, and she also used mitering. So she really knew all of the different techniques for lace shaping and put them all in this one absolutely beautiful dress. I would be willing to bet that this dress was either a wedding dress or a graduation dress. Many times the graduation dresses, by the way, were used later on for the wedding dresses. So one really beautiful white dress was what almost every young girl who was very fortunate could count on having. I think also that their waists were so tiny they didn't have much to eat back in those days. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. I hope you've had a wonderful time. I have. And I would like to invite you to join me next time.